I'm doing right now is drawing on fabric. And I lately have had this passion for fairies. I love fairies, and drawing on fabric is kind of the next step from painting on a canvas or, you know, using an easel and paints, which I will eventually do, use paints. But let me show you some examples. Here is a fairy that I did. The background is painted. The fairy herself is painted and hand drawn, and then these are all hand drawn as well. This is just one single piece of fabric of a little fairy that I did just on a white piece of background fabric, and then I did go back and paint the fairies on there, but I think it makes it kind of a cute little quilt. Let me move this. So how I started out was a drawing, and you want to do it on paper because you don't want to make any mistakes on your fabric because you can't erase it. So this is what I started with. Then I put this on a light box with my fabric over top and drew the basic outline so I would have it on my fabric, and now I have attached it to a piece of foam core to give me a surface on which to draw, and I'm going to fill in and draw the rest of my tree, my stem. So you can see I've started drawing, filling in here, and I will continue drawing and filling in, and it's a very tedious process but fun and very therapeutic actually. As you can see, I'm just drawing and filling in my designs. This is called doodling. I basically just randomly pick a doodle to do. I use micron Pigma pens, all different sizes, from 8s all the way down to a 005. The reason I use these is that they do not bleed into the fabric. They stay put, which is nice, and they're archival ink, and so I think that these can also be washed gently and you won't lose the ink and they won't bleed out. But I'm just going to keep on drawing here till I have completed my fairy. She's blowing kisses. I think I'm going to call it blowing kisses. This particular one, I think I'm going to paint the background, and I'm going to paint the fairy also. Haven't quite decided what paint I'm going to use yet, whether I'll use watercolor or an acrylic paint, but I will paint it, and then she will be painted. It's going to be a little different looking than either of these two that I've done here. I like to try new things, so I'm going to do something a little different. Well, this one, I actually drew out a stencil of the outline of this shape and put it down on the fabric, and the shape also of the fairy, and then I painted the background with acrylic paint. And then after that dried, then I pulled up the stencil because I wanted the background for this to be white, and for the fairy also, and then I painted the fairy later as well. I cut it out of freezer paper, so all of this and the fairy was cut out of one single piece of freezer paper and adhered to the fabric well so that paint wouldn't get under the edges, and then I painted the background. Freezer paper adheres well because there is a waxy side on one side of the paper, and if you use an iron, a warm iron, you can actually adhere it to the background of your fabric. It won't damage the fabric. It comes right up really easily and it doesn't leave any residue. The iron, once you're attaching the freezer paper down, you want to make sure that the edges are down pretty securely so that the paint doesn't bleed underneath. But you're very careful when you paint this. No, this wasn't touched up after the freezer paper was taken off. No, before I actually quilt this, I outline stitch everything, usually using a monofilament thread, and I try to use a puffier batting behind this in the quilt sandwich, even though this looks very thin and not very lofty, but it's because of all the quilting I've got on here. But I like some of the relief. I wanted it to stand up so you can see the leaves after I've quilted it. They puff up and it looks kind of trapunto-like. Probably see that pretty well.